The Houston Texans may have lost a lot more than a football game Sunday when quarterback C.J. Stroud suffered an apparent concussion and left the game in the first half. The Texans never found the end zone, though stout defense and Ka'imi Fairbairn's 5 field goals did make it close in an 18-15 loss to the Denver Broncos. To discuss that and some other developments in sports, we're joined now by Houston Press writer and Bleav in Astros podcast co-host Jeff Balke. Hi, Jeff.
Good morning, Craig.
The Texans just have not been able to find the end zone when they've needed it. Even with first and goal from, I think it was the 2, they couldn't make it happen
twice.
Sunday. Yeah. Those hard yards, and, I mean, they win this game, right?
I think so. I mean, look, their defense was definitely good enough to win this game. Their offense was not. This has been a problem that has plagued the Texans all season long. Their inability to score in the red zone. And, yesterday we saw it absolutely magnified. And not just because they couldn't, the Denver has a very good defense themselves, particularly great defensive line, which made it so baffling why the first time they were at the 2-yard line, they just ran it straight up the middle multiple times into the teeth of the defense. And we've seen this kind of odd play calling from Nick Caley this year on a number of occasions. And it just was particularly bad yesterday when you've got C.J. Stroud going out with a concussion. You got Davis Mills coming in as his backup. You had 2 times in the red zone. You get a touchdown, they probably win this game.
How did Stroud suffer the concussion? What happened?
So it was early in the second quarter, running for a first down, made the slide. Player came up and hit him as he was sliding down. The hit was completely legal. He slid a little bit late. The guy hit him in the shoulders. But what happens in these situations, and this is the thing they don't talk about as much in the concussion situations, is it wasn't the blow to the head that caused the problem. It was when his head snapped back and hit the turf behind him. And that is a common problem with concussions, because it's not so much the helmet as it is your brain bouncing around inside of your skull. And that's essentially what happened to him. And you could tell he was down immediately. I didn't think there was any question he was going to be ruled out, even though he gave the thumbs up on his way out of NRG. And that brings into question whether he will be available for next week.
Was there any update on his condition, or is there any way to know until
Not yet.
it goes on?
They'll probably have an update early today, but he's going to go through the league's concussion protocol. And so we'll have to see if, how he holds up under that. There have been guys that have, come back after a week and looked fine, and there have been guys that have missed multiple weeks. So we just don't know at this point.
Without him, Davis Mills potentially becomes the starting quarterback. While he didn't throw any picks yesterday, and he seemed to make some decent choices, it's not like they were able to move the ball at all with him.
No, he wasn't good. And after 5 years, you would think he would be a capable backup, but that just hasn't materialized. The Texans are probably not making the postseason anyway. They certainly are not making it without C.J. Stroud on the field. And they probably weren't going to make it anyway. Now at 3-5, it's going to be a long, long road to hoe for them, especially since they're playing against good teams, because their division, shockingly, is pretty good this season.
If you had the opportunity to do so, would you look into acquiring another quarterback?
I mean, not unless C.J. Stroud was gone for an extended period of time. I mean, if he's going to be gone for 4 or 5 weeks, you might consider it. I just don't think so. I think with this team, it just doesn't make a lot of sense at this point in the season. If this was early in the season, sure, you could make that argument. But with this team the way it is, I just can't imagine them making any kind of move like that. Or if they did, how much difference it would make.
Let's talk basketball. The Houston Rockets stumbled out of the gate with a pair of losses, but have since won 3 in a row, including Saturday night's 128-101 drubbing of the Celtics in Boston. The Rockets host the Dallas Mavericks tonight. What are you watching for in the game tonight?
Well, it's going to be an interesting it's interesting with the Rockets, because they are a very good defensive team, as we expected they would be, but they're currently number 1 in offensive rating in basketball. Their first 2 opponents were 2 of the better defensive teams in the NBA. And of course, Oklahoma City hasn't lost a game this year yet. So you can not really fault them for dropping a couple games and then coming out and absolutely dismantling the teams in front of them, including Boston, who had a really good win over Philadelphia just this past week. With Dallas, the thing you're always going to be looking for in Dallas is Cooper Flagg, their rookie. Hasn't had a great start to the season so far, but he's a guy you're definitely going to be wanting to watch. Should be an interesting matchup with him versus Amin Thompson, two tall point guards. I think the Rockets defense again is just so stout, and Dallas is not a great offensive team. And of course, Anthony Davis has been out hurt again, and they still are without Kyrie Irving. So I think this is not going to be a huge matchup in terms of whether the Rockets are better than Dallas. I think they are, but the chemistry of the team is what's going to be interesting with Rockets. How do they build from here? How do they continue to grow as an organization? I mean, they still have some new guys, Durant being chief among them.
Looking at these first 5 games, is there any one thing you'd point to that you'd say, wow, they're really doing that well, and one thing you'd point to say, there's something they could improve on?
Yeah, the one thing they're doing well is shooting the basketball. I mean, they're one of the most efficient scoring teams in basketball, which is a huge turnaround for them. I mean, Kevin Durant's elbow jumper from the free throw line is like a layup. And having that in your arsenal is remarkable. They're also a good three-point shooting team. Alperen Sengun is shooting really well. The Rockets are shooting near 50%, over 40% from three. I mean, they've been really, really good shooting the ball. We'll see if that continues. In terms of deficiency, they're turning the ball over more than they should. This is not a surprise with Fred VanVleet missing, the season with the knee injury. That is something they're still going to have to figure out. They are still trying to figure out their rotations. They're still trying to figure out their chemistry on the floor. That's something that I think will get better as the season goes along, as they get to know each other. Dorian Finney-Smith hasn't played yet. He's coming off-season surgery. When he plays, it's likely he'll be in the starting lineup. And that's another key component to this team going forward.
To baseball, the World Series was decided this weekend in dramatic fashion. The Dodgers clinched their second straight championship with an 11-inning victory in Game 7 over the Toronto Blue Jays. On the one hand, this was an electric World Series featuring 2 powerhouse squads. On the other hand, they had 2 of the 5 highest payrolls in baseball. So should Major League Baseball celebrate the excellence of these clubs or be concerned at all about the ongoing disparity between haves and have-nots in baseball?
Well, it's hard to say that with Toronto, because really Toronto's most of that money, a big chunk of that money went to Vlad Guerrero Jr. And that's pretty much why their payroll skyrocketed into the top 5. Otherwise, they're a 10 to 15, ranked team in terms of their payroll. The Dodgers, you do have to look at that and say, listen, the Dodgers spend more than any other team in baseball. They will continue to spend more than any other team in baseball. And as a result, they will continue to get into, if not winning, the World Series on a fairly regular basis. And that's not good for half of the league. Half of the league is or more, they just can't ever win in these situations. And it's a problem for me. It's a problem for a lot of fans. And I don't think Major League Baseball is going to be able to address it. I think they want to. They're going to have a league power struggle starting in 2027 when the collective bargaining agreement comes up. I don't know what they're going to be able to do about it, but it's a real bummer if you're a fan that lives now Houston's not one of them, right? Houston ranked in the top 10 in payroll. But if you're one of these teams, if you're Pittsburgh or, if you're Kansas City, if you're one of those teams, you're never really going to be able to compete. And that's a problem.
Saturday was the last game without the automatic ball and strike replay system. How will it change the game?
I think it's going to be fascinating to watch this. I really do. I think it's going to create some really interesting dynamics in terms of balls and strikes. I really am anxious to watch and see how it's going to do. I have no idea what kind of craziness we're going to run into, but it's definitely going to be weird for the first month or 2 of the season. And I honestly think there are going to be some games that are changed with the automatic ball and strike system. I really do. There have been some moments this season. Look, officiating this season was about as bad as you'll see. And there were some moments where guys were called out on the third out on a third strike that wasn't in the strike zone. I think we're going to see some of that this year, and I think we're going to see some games change as a result.
We're out of time, but I want to congratulate Mauricio Dubon on his Gold Glove.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
It's the second Gold Glove, and really impressive for the only person to now have 2 from the utility spot in the history of baseball. So, yeah, congratulations, Doobie.
Jeff Balke writes for the Houston Press and co-hosts the Bleav in Astros podcast. Jeff, thank you very much.
Thank you, Craig.